Let me take you back to a time when you had to go outside to meet people and talk to people, where your life wasn't just photographs put onto a screen, and all your highlight moments and how your perfect life wasn't so perfect, where you went out and you did things. You didn't just photograph yourself doing things and then trying to brag about it online. Let's go back to a place before social media. Because as I started thinking about it, I used to think the internet took over the world and kind of destroyed what we used to have before the internet. But the reality is, it was probably more social media. Social media, or I like to call it anti-social media, is the true killer of being social, of going out and doing things. And I think back to, well, you know what? Even more recently, I stopped, I completely cut off Facebook and everything. But I remember when I first got my first Facebook request. I can't remember exactly what year it was. You'd have to check the years. But I remember I got a Facebook request. I go into my email, and there's a Facebook request waiting there for me from my buddy Ryan L. And I'm like, what is this? Facebook. I had no idea what it was. And I kind of stared at it. I didn't do anything about it for a long time. And then all of a sudden, one day, I decided, okay, let me sign up. So I sign up, and my first friend is Ryan L., my buddy Ryan. And, and all of a sudden, as soon as you get on Facebook, everybody else that you grew up with and everybody else that you know, family members, you name it, people that you barely even talk to, they all start friend requesting you. And next thing you know, you have your whole social network, is what they called it, exposed. So now you can see what everybody's up to. And not only can you see whatever they're up to, you can see pictures of their food, pictures of their babies. You can see their thoughts, their political beliefs, and their righteous indignation. And you start seeing that life was more about getting a perfect photo to show everybody else how great it is that you're doing so well. So you would just see these photos of people on a mountaintop, don't get me wrong, it's cool, you're on a mountaintop, that's great. But you just start seeing, or pictures of people with the perfect family, and that the family's not so perfect. And you just start seeing this fakeness kind of creeping in. Everybody's trying to live the same life, get the bigger car, get the bigger house, get the bigger job, be the coolest person in the world. And you just start seeing this inauthenticity kind of seeping in to people, because people no longer cared about being themselves. What they cared about was looking good, was looking cool, making sure everybody saw how great their lives were. And you just saw this fakeness. I call it fake book, but you just saw this fakeness starting to grow through social media. And for me, the real advent of social media, it wasn't MySpace, it was Facebook. Facebook for me was the real first killer of privacy, where everybody could find out what you're up to and what you're doing. I remember, when you'd go to a high school reunion or something like that, you would not know, back in the day, you would not know what people have been up to. So when you went there, you would literally be catching up with people and finding out what they've been up to for the last 10, 15, 20 years. And I think and you would be doing that in person and catching up in person. Now people, they go on Facebook and they see what you're doing and they feel like that is enough, that's an authentic connection, when it's really not an authentic connection. And I start to think about, okay, so what have we lost since social media came in, since Facebook and Instagram and all of these other things came in? And one of the things I would say is definitely that those authentic connections. We've replaced authentic connections with phony baloney updates and photographs and likes. And basically what you're trying to do, most people are trying to do, is just trying to get likes. They're not trying to meet anybody or talk to anybody or find out what's really going on with people, what's happening in their lives. They get the highlight reel, or they get the low light reel. You know, you get the highlight of the baby being born, and they get the low light of the parent passing away. You know, people are out there just starving for attention, you know, as far as social media is concerned. And then you start to see, okay, well, what else happened with social media? Then all of a sudden you start seeing, you know, like, for example, let's say people were married. Let's say you've been married for a long time. You go onto Facebook, you start adding friends, and next you know, you're adding ex-boyfriends or ex-girlfriends. And then you're curious, oh, I wonder what this person's been up to, my first love. And the next thing you know, you're married and you're messaging this person. And the next thing you know, you start seeing that, you know, people start seeing other people's lives and they start getting jealous and they start thinking, oh man, I could live like that. Or maybe if I just married that person, that first love of mine, I would be way happier. And you start seeing that social media is not only is it fake, but it's also tearing apart relationships, because it's been making it so much easier for people to contact, you know, anybody, whether it be an ex-love and you find that this also not only is it destroying people actually going out and being social, but it's actually taking away and making it easier for people to cheat, and it's making it easier for people to find to find a better life. And you just find that it's just been some sort of like this little insidious, I don't know what you would call it, but it's been slowly but surely, you know, ruining relationships, friendships, because back in the day, you never really knew. Honestly, I mean, I was younger, but you never really knew what people's political views were. You never knew that because it wasn't really something you talked about. I remember when I was a kid growing up in the 80s, my parents and my grandparents, and nobody really talked about who they were voting for. Like, it was like a secret. You wouldn't be like, I'm voting for this person. If you don't vote for this person, you're a terrible person, you know? Like, it was a secret. Like, the vote was the vote, and you just kept it to yourself. And pretty much, now that I look back on it, you could pretty much probably tell who people were going to vote for. Not that it even matters, because in my opinion, the vote doesn't matter. But you start to see just this, I don't know, man, this weird takeover of people's attention and people doing anything to get attention. You start seeing, like, now you start looking at the advent. So you go from Facebook to Instagram, and you start looking at these Instagram videos, and you start looking at these young women. And I'm not judging here. I think it's just a difference from what I'm used to. But it's just, you start to see that people all start looking the same, people all start talking the same, people all start having the same beliefs. And you just start seeing that everybody's trying to be the same person. It seems like social media is creating what it is to have a perfect life, and everybody's striving for the same life. And I think back to when I was younger, or even now, you know, I just went fishing for 3 days with my uncle and my auntie, my dad, my little brother. And I never had my phone on me at all. I don't have social media anymore. But just by putting your phone away and just by not constantly checking up on what's going on in the outside world, what's going on in places that you're not at, you start to realize how social media is taking the present away. I think that's the most important thing that I can think about that it's actually stolen, is social media has stolen the present from people. People would rather be checking their phone screens than having a genuine connection and a genuine conversation with somebody. Think about how many times you're sitting at the table with somebody, you're going out to eat, or you're doing anything, and you just have somebody there staring at their phone, or waiting for the next text, or waiting for the next WhatsApp message, or waiting for the next Instagram message, or waiting for whatever they're waiting for. And just, you can see that they're just completely distracted, sitting there laughing at text messages or laughing at messages they're getting. And they're not even paying attention to what's going on around them. They're just sitting there staring at the screen like a fucking zombie, you know? Well, what's wrong with this? Why are people more interested in what's going on outside of where they are? Why does what's happening when you're not with people, if the people are choosing not to be with you, why are you insisting on contacting and being in communication with people that aren't with you while you're with other people. But it's definitely stolen the present. Look at these little birds. And it's like, put your phone away. You know, stop looking at Facebook. Stop looking at Instagram. Stop looking at these things. Because you got to realize that if they're not with you, if the people aren't with you, then who cares? They're not with you. Pay attention to the people you're with. Talk to the people that you're with. I was out with my buddy John yesterday, you know, catching up with him. And we sat down for about, I don't know, good 3-4 hours, just talking. We had a couple beers, probably more than a couple beers. And we were just, I got found out what was going on in his life. You know, what are some of the things that happened with him? You know, found out that he's moving and a lot of stuff going on in his life, and, you know, how his parents are doing or whatever the case may be. And just finding out, you know, how is his wife, and, you know, talking to him about things that matter, you know what I mean? And neither of us had our phones out while we were sitting with each other. Maybe if somebody went to the washroom, you might pull the phone out, but other than that, we just sat there, talked, caught up. We've known each other for, oh geez, probably 35, 36 years. So we know each other's parents, we know each other's brothers and sisters. You know, we used to umpire baseball together when we were 12 years old, so we talked about some funny umpiring stories. But we sat there together, just hanging out for 3-4 hours talking, and it was great. And I think that authentic connection, that just being buddies, you know, and finding out what's going on in each other's lives. And, you know, people just don't seem to do that as much anymore. I guess you would call it heart-to-heart talks. That's what we would call, you know, I guess we would call it that. But yeah, you just see this, the social media aspect of things it didn't seem like a big deal at first. You're just like, okay, it's nice to catch up with people. It's nice to see what they're up to. It's nice to see, oh, so-and-so is a doctor, and so-and-so is a nurse, and so-and-so is a lawyer, and this and that, and look what so-and-so is doing. Like, that was fun at first. And it seemed innocent at the time. But then you start to realize that there's so much more going on underneath the surface, that it starts to, you know, once you start having likes and it starts rewarding people for not being genuine, and it stopped being about being honest and authentic, and it started to be about having the best life, and it started being keeping up with the Joneses. And it just started being an inauthentic journey to, I don't even know. And I remember when I decided that I was going to get off social media, I guess it would have been 2020. I just remember just how divisive it was. I just remember people were putting all of their political beliefs on there. They're putting all their, whatever their beliefs were. And if they thought you were wrong and they were right, and they would sat there and they would virtue signal, and you start seeing people saying, just mimicking what was just mimicking things from TV, mimicking things from that they heard on the internet. And I just started seeing this insidious fakeness and virtue signaling, and this people just saying things to look good, not saying things they actually mean. And then I started seeing people arguing with each other, and friendships over 30, 40 years breaking up over stupid political fights about whose political party is more important. And, you know, this is what I believe, and if you don't believe this, I hate you, you know? Like, and you're breaking up 40-year friendships. Families are breaking up because people disagree with each other. You know it's okay, just so we're clear here, you know it's okay to disagree with people, right? Just because somebody doesn't have your belief doesn't mean that they're a worse person than you, doesn't mean you're a better person. Just because you think you have the higher moral ground, which for the most part you probably don't, but you believe it anyways. But if you believe, all these people that believe that they have the higher moral ground are the worst, honestly, because they think they're right, and they think because they're right that anything they say and do can be justified. And that's not the case. At the end of the day, people are allowed to disagree with you. You know, just because you guys don't agree, and at the same time, you can still be friends with people you don't agree with. Can you believe that? You don't have the same beliefs as somebody, but you can still be friends? That's a real thing. Back in the day, that happened all the time, where you had completely different belief systems, but you were still friends with each other because you realize that people are different. You don't have to be the same. This group mentality, this group think, where on Facebook people like grouped together and bounded together, and it was super toxic. And like the things people say online, they would never say in real life to your face. You know what I mean? They would never say half of this stuff. Not even half. 95% of the stuff they wouldn't even say. They wouldn't have the balls to say it to somebody's face. Because you would have to actually believe what you're saying and be able to defend it and be able to have like a conversation. Nowadays, people will write comments and they'll just use Google or AI to write their answers. You know what I mean? So it's not even like, you're not even talking to real people anymore, even though you don't even know if you're talking to a real person. If people are just, a lot of people just, whatever they say on a comment, they'll just type it into AI and they'll get the answer from there and just plagiarize AI, and it's just becoming one of those places. So anyways, I just saw how divisive it was, and I decided that if I really wanted to continue to connect with my friends and family and people authentically, I just want to see them for who they are. I don't want to see them for their most recent posts. I don't want to see them for their political beliefs. I don't want to see them for their medical beliefs. None of that matters to me. All that matters is I see the person that I know and I have a conversation with them and we connect. That's what matters to me. And then we're going to talk about, because what people don't realize is that most people have about 95% things in common. You pretty much have everything in common, except for like 5%, maybe 10%. And what happens on social media is you find that people fixate on the things they don't have in common. You know what I mean? Like they fixate on the one thing that people, you don't believe this? Well, I don't believe what you believe, so we're enemies. But I believe 95% of everything else you believe. So when you get down to sitting and talking to people, you start to relate to them, you start to have a conversation, you start telling stories. And through those stories, you start to realize, oh man, we have a lot in common here. So I just think that remembering that we have a lot more in common than we do different. And I just find that gets lost when you're not talking in person. Because when you talk in person, you're going to change subjects. You're not going to fixate on one thing. You're not trying to prove a point necessarily. You're just having a conversation. Your conversation flows freely. You can go from this conversation to that conversation, from talking about friends to telling old stories to talking about what you're trying to do in the future to talking about what you're doing right now. Talking about old heartache or talking about whatever, the passing of a parent or whatever the case may be, And that free-flowing conversation, in-person conversation, that authentic connection with people is what really matters. It doesn't matter. There's so many things that just don't matter in the world. And honestly and truly, debating over what politician's better than the other, I think is a total waste of time. Like, let's get real here. What is it that a politician's meant to do? What's their job? Their job's to lie, cheat, steal, right? Kill. So who cares? No matter what, they're not going to be doing anything. They might do some good things, but ultimately, who knows? I don't bother wasting my time on it. Like, I don't watch any news anymore. I don't watch mainstream news. I don't watch alternative news. I don't watch any news because at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. Because all it does is distract you from the present. You start worrying about what's going on in the world, and this worry starts seeping in, and you don't need to be worrying about it. What you need to be worrying about, or what you need to be doing, is figuring out who you are, and trying to create the best world you can within yourself. The better you are as a person, the more you know yourself as a person, the more you're following your dreams and getting to know who you are, the better the world's going to be. Because you can't change the world. People want to go out there, I'm going to change the world. But you can change yourself. And I think that's it, man. So quit being distracted by BS and things that don't matter, And just remember that when you talk to people in person, you find that you start to relate to them a lot more because you have a lot of stuff that you talk about. And because of that free-flowing conversation, which you really don't get on social media, it's not free-flowing. You get fixated on a point, and then all you do is talk about this one thing. Whereas in conversation, you know, it's very easy to transition from one conversation to another. So, yeah, that's what I want to really talk about today. So social media, I don't know. I feel like it's been downhill ever since social media came in. It was nice for a second, but then I realized, man, that losing that relatedness and losing authentic connection and losing not knowing what people are up to. Because what's the best part of seeing somebody that you haven't seen in a long time? It's catching up. That initial conversation, you find out what they've been doing, you know, and you just remember them how they were maybe 20 years ago or 15 years ago or 10 years ago. And you find out, oh man, Terry's brewing his own beer, or, you know, Vince he was offered to be a judge in the United States, and he's a lawyer, and he's got 8 different law degrees, you know, in different states. You know, cool stuff. Like, I love that. That's what I love the most about not having social media, is when I see people, I genuinely don't know what they've been up to. And when I get to sit down and talk to them, you know, I'm all ears, because I'm super interested in what people have been up to. So that case that not knowing and just getting out there and doing things and talking to people and getting out in the world, not for the sake of just taking a really nice photo, but for the sake of, and listen, I get there's a time and place for everything, but just getting out there to do things, and not for the sake of trying to just get likes and trying to show people how great your life is. Like, just go and do something, you know? Go fishing, you know? I just went fishing for 3 days. It was great. And sure, I took some videos, yes, but the majority of the time was just me sitting down with my uncle, my dad, my brother, and we weren't even talking really. We were just hanging out in the boat with our lines in the water. Sure, we talked, but there'd be minutes where there'd be like time where it'd be like 30 minutes would go by and nobody would say anything. We just sat there and we were just enjoying the moment, just enjoying being in the boat, enjoying the water, enjoying seeing eagles and seeing fish jump out of the water, and enjoying each other catching fish. You don't have to talk. Even when you're around people, you don't even have to talk to them. Just being in the presence and just sitting there, relaxing together, even if you're not talking, is great. It's better than being in a room on a computer or checking out your phone. That's the beauty of it. So I just find that, you know, I'm glad. One of the best moves I ever made was getting off of social media, and I don't plan on ever getting back on social media. And I do think that social media, and now social media links right into the kind of, and the smartphone are linked, but the combination of those two things, social media and then the beepings and like a constant updates, those two things combined were a toxic connection that really started stealing people's present moments. So I don't know, you tell me, what are your thoughts? Do you think that, what are your thoughts on social media? What are some of the good things? What are some of the bad things? You know, let me know. Have you noticed a difference in the world before social media came on board? Do you find that when you're sitting at the dinner table or you're out with people, that they're more interested in what's going on their phone than they are in talking to you or being with you? Let me know. You know, I wanted to talk a little bit about social media. I wanted to talk a little bit about, you know, what we lost, if anything. But it just seems to me, if anything we lost authenticity, and we lost the present moment. And I think the good news is we can make a decision and a choice to actually get it back, to take it back. So let's make a decision, man. I would tell most people, man, get off social media if you can. I know a lot of people say, well, I like Marketplace. So I get it, man. Marketplace on Facebook, there's things that are good, that you can buy things, but there's other ways to do it. Now go to a flea market, man. Roll the dice. Maybe don't know what you go out somewhere and you're gonna buy something and just not know what you're gonna buy. Just roam. But anyways, let me know your thoughts. I just wanted to put together a nice quick video. I'm here in Regina, Saskatchewan, where I grew up. I'm in the neighborhood I grew up in. Funny enough, I bumped into my buddy's mom. I had a nice conversation with her, how she's doing. But yeah, man, beautiful place. I'm Matt Ross. I'm the Gnome Wolf.